I was the type of guy, like if you told me no, or if you gave me resistance, I'm going to take that and I'm going to take that to inspire me to do more of what I want to do.
If you have managed to achieve just one significant things in your life, you can actually use that as an anchor to achieve anything else. You can do that, you can actually do this. So it's just a matter of the discipline.
Because you have to become aware.
Yep.
You don't have to understand. You don't have to verbalize. We get too much into the intellect. If you want to change your subconscious mind quick, you cannot look here. It has to be a feeling.
You know, sometimes you just need to understand, why did you fall in love with that person or any other goals? It really doesn't matter. It's a hard work. It's something that you got to do the work and do a lot of effort into it.
We only make time for what we value, right? So if we're not doing the things that matter most to what we want to create, the real truth is you just don't value then what that dream life is. You don't value that. And sometimes that's a self-sabotage. Emotional freedom technique is a technique that uses different acupressure points that you tap for a certain amount of times. It's good for de-stressing, releasing anxiety. It calms the nervous system.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Living in Control podcast. I'm your host, Reza Abraham. I'm the author and the co-founder of In Control Group, an organization with a mission to empower people to be in control of their life and career. We imagine a world in which most people are in control of their lives, a conscious life accompanied by conversion, contentment, and consistency. So in today's podcast, we are going to talk about one of the cornerstones of living in control life, which is called conversion. And that means your ability and aspiration to stay ahead of progress. So today's guest is someone who has progressed extremely well in his personal and professional life, and also in a mission of helping individuals achieve the life of their dreams by working on their mindset and using principles from neuroscience, quantum physics, universal laws, and energy principles. He's a multiple award-winning mindset coach, catalyst, speaker, podcast host, author of 3 books, Rediscover Your Greatness, A Walk in the Dark, and his latest book that he's going to talk about it more in today's podcast, Decoding the Matrix. He's the founder of Empower Your Reality, co-founder of the Wellness Path, where he is a pediatric and family wellness chiropractor. Let's welcome a very good friend of mine joining us from Maxwell, Tennessee, US, Dr. Vic Manzo Jr. Welcome, sir.
Brother, appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me on. I'm stoked to be here.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be with you today. Yeah, so you are joining us from Maxwell, Tennessee, and I have heard from you that it's a beautiful place. So if you want to describe it in like 2 sentences, how does Maxwell, Tennessee look like?
It's, you got mountains, you got trees, you got nature. It's just very rich in green with just tons of trees, beautiful. We have the Smoky Mountains near us. So it's just absolutely gorgeous just to see anywhere where I'm at, mountain ranges and stuff. It's just absolutely stunning.
Beautiful. It got to be a good place for, I think, like, meditations, just go to the nature, do a bit of like jungle bathing and so on, right?
I was just gonna say, like, when you bring that up, I didn't even mention this, but it's like when you go to the Smoky Mountains, there's like just something that happens to you that there's like a switch that just all of a sudden you're like just deeply connected to nature. And wow. I've done it before where we've gone a hike, and then they have like all these waterfalls. And I remember going and doing a meditation, and I was just telling my wife, I'm like, that was the most deep and profound meditation I've had in a long time. But I was very scared. I had to get over the mindset because there are snakes in the mountains, and stuff like that. And I'm deathly afraid of them, but there are some poisonous and none, but it's like one of those things. Like, I come from Chicago originally, so it's like, we didn't see, if I saw a gardener snake, it was like once in a blue moon in a forest. Here they got poisonous ones that can do some, they can mess with you a little bit.
Yeah. Has it been like preserved well, or it's like there's a lot going on there?
No, they preserved it so beautifully. I mean, there's so, like, what they have done to keep and protect that. It's like, it's just pure nature, just nature in its essence. There's nothing that can be done or touched, anything. It has to keep the way how nature works. That's what's so beautiful about it. And I think that's the energy of it when you go there. When you go, like, I don't know if you've ever been to like a place that has like, it's like, it's been protected and it's just kept the way nature does things. I think there's an essence and an energy there that it's very palpable for us to feel.
Beautiful, beautiful place to be. I think what you're describing, it makes it like now it become like a tourism attraction. So like an advertisement happening right now. So people would be like, let's go, Virginia.
I love it.
So, so that's nice. That's nice. That's nice. All right. So let's get into your life and see like how did you get where you are? What was your starting point? So tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah. So my journey was, it's an interesting journey. I started out going into computers or computer science specifically. That's what my
Ooh.
undergrad was going into. I was going to Arizona State because they were very well known for that.
Yep.
And I was kind of influenced by my dad. My dad kept telling me, go into computers. That's where the money is. You're good with computers. I used to build computers just for fun. When
And
I
this is
late,
how many years ago?
19 years ago, 20 years ago? No, 20 years ago
20
now.
years ago. Okay. All right. Cool.
No,
Cool.
not 20. Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not that old.
You're
Yeah,
considered
20.
what, Gen X or you're Gen X, I think.
Yeah, this is always an interesting conversation because I'm on the cusp, right? So I'm right in the middle. So I think it's I'm not a millennial because I forgot the where that falls. But I'm Gen X is just a little bit before. I think the Gen X starts at or ends at 1979 or something.
Yes, around 1980. Yeah.
Yeah, 1980. I was born in 1983. So
Oh,
I'm
that's
whatever that.
cool.
So I think
Okay.
I'm the next generation, which is what? So
Yeah, I
this
tell
Gen
you
X
something. I have never talked about this in any podcast. We are the same age.
I love it. Awesome, man. See, another reason why we connect. You look a little young, you look younger than me
Cool.
though. But yeah.
Cool, cool, cool.
But yeah, but it's interesting though, because I do take a millennial perspective though. I don't like being on the phone, right?
Yep.
Millennials don't like being on phones. I don't answer my phone.
Yep.
If someone calls me, it's on silent anyhow, and there's reasons why I do that. But I'm like, if someone calls, leave a message, I'll text you or call you back later on when I find time for it. So there's a little bit of that, but then I also have I'm very Gen X. I was brought up, with the culture of just hard work, you grind, you hustle, all those kind of things.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to that. But yeah, I mean, that's so I was going into computers, and then my first year in undergrad, I've always been in health. I always had a focus on health. My mom's a fitness instructor and a yoga instructor. And so I saw her taking supplements and, eating right. And she was always in good shape. And the people that I would go to the gym, sometimes I go with her to the club, and the club is not a club to go dance. It was a fitness club. They called it that back then. And so it was one of those things where, I just see people working out all the time and they looked great and they had energy. So I was like, Mom, how can I get like that? Because I wasn't in good shape at 13 years old. But that was my journey starting to work out. I didn't start lifting weights till 15, but I was then in 16. I wanted to get better at nutrition. So I started studying nutrition as much as I could. I asked my mom questions. I'd read books on it once I had time. It was a very popular topic in high school about, guys just getting in shape and stuff like that. So I really wanted to learn. But when I got to 19 years old, my mindset, right, my belief was you eat right, you take good supplements, and you exercise. That is the pivotal peak of being healthy. So that's what I was taught. And that's what's taught a lot in the world, specifically even in America. And so what happened though, at 19 years old, I'm playing rugby for Arizona State. First time I ever played rugby. And so my conditioning and my workouts are a lot more strenuous than what I'm used to. But for some reason, my health got worse. It was just slowly declining over the year to a point I started getting scared that I thought I had like some blood disorder, because it wasn't like just, sensitivity to light with the sun. I had headaches, I had acne on my back, canker sores, all these things. But long story short, my mom, I finally got an appointment to go to a doctor. It took like a month, and I was from when was coming back home to Chicago. And then about 3-4 days before I had to go, my mom's like, why don't you go see Dr. Frank? This was a chiropractor my mom's been seeing since I was 1 year old. I went to him around 9.5 years old to about 11. So I said, hey, if you can get me in like by tomorrow or the following day, I'll go, and then just cancel the doctor appointment. And so she got it all scheduled for me. I go. Long story short, he looks at me and he's like, listen, after he went through everything, he goes, I'll be able to help you with all your symptoms. They'll be gone before you go back to school. You're going to need chiropractic care for the rest of your life. You're going to have to stop playing rugby because you have scoliosis. It's going to only do more damage to you. And he's like, you're going to have to make a change. I was like, you know what? This is my health. Whatever I have to do, I'm in 100%. So long story short, 2 months later, right before I go back to school, symptoms gone. 2 months later, now this is 4 months in the chiropractic care. I've been working out extensively. Rugby practice was 2.5 hours of just nonstop running. Well, we have breaks, and plus my 4 or 5 days a week of working out. So I'm like, I could run a 5-minute mile. I was running a 40-yard dash in a 4.45 for a guy my size at 220 pounds. That's not really, that's not heard of often. So I'm in great shape. From a conditioning, from a strength perspective, when you look at it from there. From a physical body perspective, I was bulky, but I wasn't shredded, and I couldn't understand why. 4 months into chiropractic care, the only thing that changed, my body went down to 212 pounds, and I went down to 10% body fat.
Wow.
And so that was so not only the symptoms was gone, and that really piqued my interest in chiropractic, and I started looking to go into it.
Yeah.
But when all of a sudden, I'll never forget, October 2003, all of a sudden I'm looking and going, I have an 8-pack. I got veins on the bottom of my stomach. I thought I thought I could never have this. And so it was mind blowing. So that's what shifted me into chiropractic. And then I switched gears. I went back home, went to school in Chicago, got a business, bachelor in business. And then from there, I went to chiropractic school in Dallas. And that was a whole amazing process, because now I was doing something that I cared about doing, what I was interested in. And so I wanted to learn how to be the best at that. And this is where my journey started to get into energy medicine. I didn't learn it at school. I was going outside of school to learn this. Sure. But energy medicine, I became a Reiki master and trainer. I started studying universal laws, spiritual truths. I wanted to know healing at the deepest level. And what I got out of that was not only the answers to that, but I also got answers then to how the mind works and how life works. And I started to learn then, as I learned more about the brain and neuroscience and functional neurology and laws of the body with physiology and all the other ologies that come with what we learned, I was always applying it to the big picture. And that kept me at a place where I can, because a lot of times when you're in school, especially in chiropractic school, it's like a 6-year college curriculum in 3.5 years. So it's very jam-packed. And for listeners who may not know what I'm talking about, a normal full-time schedule for a college student is around, it's 12 hours is what's considered full-time. Average college student goes around 14 hours of college hour, or whatever, I forgot what they call it now. 14 hours of school time, whatever that they have for the semester. Chiropractic school was on average it was at 28 to 32 hours.
Wow.
So you see how it's double that. So it's very intense. So a lot of times students just focus on, getting what they have to do, just understanding what they have to learn, pass a test and move on. I was doing that, but I was also looking at the big picture to see how can I put this all together. And so that's kind of what shifted my life. And then when I came out of school, that's where I started to apply these principles to really put them into work, so I can deeply not only understand them intellectually, but I wanted to experience them to say, wow, this actually worked. Yeah. And so that's what my journey has led me to. And that's how I got into eventually down the road. I was starting to see so many changes of it that I was like, I got to get into coaching. I want to help entrepreneurs because I just don't like the message that's being told to them. Yep. And that's kind of how it's been.
Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I personally had an experience of like going to the chiropractor for a number of times. And one thing very interesting about it that I found is that some of these like doctors, they're like quite small in size too, and then the guys just like turn you and twist you around, and it's like, wow, where did you bring that power from? So it's all about like the point that they press, and then it's not really require you to be a huge guy in order to do that. It's like a same belief system that, when I remember when my wife asked me to go for diving, so I was a swimmer my whole life, I say, oh, I'm a swimmer. It's like super cool. Diving should be like, for me, and then, so when I get into diving certification, so they said that, I said, I'm a swimmer. And then the guy said, it really doesn't matter. It's like being a swimmer, it doesn't help you at all in terms of like diving, So the same things apply about chiropractor. So my imagination before I go for my first session was like, the guy has to be a big guy, so that they can actually like really bring you around. And then the guy was like so small. He was so small, smaller than me, And I was like, are you sure you can do this? And then he's like, please lie down. And then when he's like, if you like those movement, my whole heart, dropped. I was like, oh my God, this is so scary, right? But it's very interesting, the journey that you took is that you kind of like, it's very rare to hear from people that, let's say, for example, you want to heal you want to heal, you go to the doctor, but you don't become a doctor, so that's like, from someone who is coming from IT and business background and then moving completely different direction. That's why I say, like, the decisions that you make was like really a growth journey, right? That you really want to put yourself into something that it's pretty irrelevant with your previous like studies that you have, right? So what kind of obstacles and support you have when you wanted to go through that transition?
It was one of those things where I had a lot of opposition. So I had to face a lot of things, because you gotta remember, my dad wanted me to be in computers, right?
Yeah.
And so when I decided to come back home from Arizona State to go to Chicago, my dad was like, oh, he's coming back home because of a girl. Because there was someone I was talking to from back. Well, I was coming back home. I already knew I was doing that. And then all of a sudden, there was someone I haven't talked to in a while. And we started to reconnect. And so he was like, oh, he's coming back home for that. It was like, no, I'm coming. I want to be a chiropractor. And my dad, and I love my dad. I have an amazing relationship with my dad. It's just like, it's what parents do, right? They think what they think is best for you, because they don't want to see you struggle or see a challenge, or if they don't understand something, fear kicks in and they're going to try to hold you back. It's an initial parent response. Nothing wrong with that. And I love my dad to this day. He sees it now. But even when I became a chiropractor, there was a point where I was going to potentially go work with Dr. Frank. I'd known him and stuff, but I didn't. At the end of the day, I chose not to, because I wanted to work on my own. I had a vision that was just big, and I didn't. And my heart was like, I'm going to try that. I'm going to do it this way. And if it doesn't work out, then I can always fall back to work for somebody. But if it does work out, well, then I know I'm going to have a very fulfilling life going that route. And so, but that was that. Support wise, I didn't have a lot of support. I had to find my support. And that's where motivational speakers came in. Yeah. That's where books came in. That's where I found my mentors. I did have, well, this is previous to chiropractic. So like, I was the type of guy, like, if you told me no, or if you gave me resistance, I'm going to take that, and I'm going to take that to inspire me to do more of what I want to do.
Where does it come from?
I have no idea. Well, you know what? I know where it comes from. When I was a kid, I was always told what to do. But I see people, family, parents, friends, whatever, do the total opposite of what they told me to do. And I was always restricted to, it didn't care about what my emotions were. It didn't care about how I felt. I was told, this is how you have to go, or this is what you have to do, or don't do that because that upsets a nana or papa, my grandparents, or don't do that because of this. So I had to learn how to be this people pleaser. And so I just got tired. Once I got older and I started to build this confidence, I was like, I'm tired of having people tell me what to do. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of that. I was all my life this, but then yet my mom told me I could do anything I want as long as I put my mind to it. Those things don't go well together.
Age, Victor? What age is that?
When my mom used to tell me that part?
I mean, the part that you say, like, you've been like a people pleaser, and then you got your confidence back. Like, what age is that?
So pretty much all my life, the people pleasing, until I got to, it wasn't until I went to Arizona State. I mean, there was still people pleasing. I still even people pleased when I got in, when I had my own practice, but it was less and less and less. And that was that point. So there was that process and journey of learning to break away, because what I started to see, and this was like, again, how do life just gives you the answers. I was very like frustrated in many ways. It's like a knee-jerk reaction. Once someone tells me I got to do something, and if they're not asking me questions, they're just telling me, it's just like, I don't get like mad or anything. It's just internally, there's like a feeling I get. And then that's just like, and I had to learn what that feeling was and put words to it and label it and understand it. And then I was like, that's limitation. Okay. That's this, that's that. Because when I came out, I remember when I came out of chiropractic school, I used to tell all the time, I'm not going to listen to anybody because everyone's sharing their fears and limited beliefs on me. And I'm just going to focus on what I want to create. Because when I came out of school, I graduated in 2009 in September. Well, we all know what happened. Well, in America, what happened in 2008, 2009 is we had Rocktober, which just took the whole economy down into a recession. Yeah. And, banks weren't giving out business loans as easy as they were anymore. Before you can share a business plan, I had a 28-page business plan. And I thought, I'll just get a loan. and I'll be good to go, because I didn't have money. And it was one of those things where those were challenges. I had a challenge every step of the way, but it was one of those things where, you know, in life you choose, right? And it's like, this is the life I'm going to choose, and I'm going to go all in. And, you know, my goal is to get to the other side of that.
Sure. Has the sport that you play, rugby, I think it's a pretty competitive sport, right? Do you think that experience of going through rugby might have influenced the way you're thinking?
So I only played rugby for 1 year, but I played baseball for 25 years.
Oh,
and so, but yes, sports did that. That's one thing I love about sports, because in baseball, I remember my buddy and I, it was like late in my high school. Like, I think I was a senior in high school, and we were studying what scouts look for. And actually, this was my junior year, and we were like, what are they interested? And so then all of a sudden we just started training, because I was in high school. When I played high school baseball, I wasn't good because the support there wasn't great. You know, it was an all guys high school, and they're just, the support. I'm the type, see, again, who I was back then to who I am now. Back then, I needed the support of a coach. I needed the support of my teammates. And when I had that, man, I played amazing. If I didn't have that, I didn't do well. See how I let other people control me and my outcomes?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, because it was sports in a way, because what was interesting is I played for another team, which I wasn't supposed to, not in it was a semi-pro league. And I wasn't supposed to, because in high school, when you play for the team, you can't play baseball anywhere else. And I played really well there. I mean, I was an all-star in there. I was killing it. And at one point I was like, well, what do I have here? And I saw support, and I was like, okay, how do I create that later on? So when I started to play baseball more and more, and I played semi-pro, anytime I go into any league, a wood bat league, there was a Dominican, Puerto Rican league, which was very competitive, major leaguers and all that.
Yep.
All of a sudden I started to thrive, because in that one league, I'll never forget, they were a little harsh. You make an error, they really reamed you. And I was just like, dude, chill out. It's an error. Like, we'll come back. Let's get the bats up. Let's do this. And that's where I started to develop confidence. Like, hey, it's okay. We'll figure this out. And that's where my mentality started to shift, where it's like, and now that's what I have now. Like, whenever I want to create my life, it's like, it's going to happen. This is the vision. This is where I'm going. And that's where I'm at. So yeah, sports, it was massive for me. It taught me life, in many different ways. And I wouldn't be where I'm at today without it.
Sure. So do you remember still, like, if you want to do a quick reflection, it's like, do you remember when was the moment or any specific experience that you have gone through that it triggered you to get in control, and like you can say like, okay, that was like a turning point in my life?
Oh yeah. I have multitudes of those, but since we're talking about sports, I'll go that route, but I can definitely go into other elements if you want.
Yep.
I was 18 years old, senior year. It's my 4th year playing baseball. And, they had a coach's son who played my position. I was considered a future prospect my freshman year. I never made an error. I came back and I was bad. I think I batted like 350 that year, which was a decent year. I was not doing well in the middle of the year, but I came back with it. Next year, new coach, whatever, long story short, I made an error. He reamed me for it. And then I was nervous. So I made another error. Next thing you know, I never saw the outfield again. There came a point though, my senior year, we had a coach, and it was the assistant coach. His son was a phenomenal baseball player. He was a freshman playing varsity. We had a game where we played a doubleheader in 36 degrees. I kept telling my dad that they're benching me, they're not playing me. I didn't know who to talk to. So I was just like, I'm going to talk to my parents. And my dad's like, no, it's just, you just got to play better. It's whatever. And there was no support there. But this one doubleheader at 36 degrees when it snowed, he saw me sit on a bench for 2 games. I didn't even get played. The coach's son was doing horrible. At the end of that, my dad eventually got mad. He got pissed, and my dad doesn't get mad. And once he passes that threshold, he opens up, and he was yelling at the coach and all this stuff. The team, we all had to go back with the team to the school, and all of a sudden, the coaches all put us in the gym. We're all sitting on the bench, and they're reaming us, like, says, if any parent ever comes up again, if any parent ever tells us and complains about their kid not playing anymore, you will be immediately off the team. And I'm not the person to get up and speak or even swear. I was told, I grew up in a very Italian, Roman Catholic, you don't swear to adults, all these things. And I literally got up and I'm not going to, I won't say the words, but I was like, F this. Don't give me no effing excuse. I was like, I'm gone. And the assistant coach looked me in the eye and he looked at me and he said, you will never effing play college baseball. You're not good enough to play college baseball. And at that, remember I said, I don't like when people tell me something. At that pivotal moment, I made a change. I looked at him and said, F you. I walked out and I said, I'm going to prove to this mother effer that I can play college baseball.
Wow.
When I went to Arizona State, I went to go try to walk on. They're the number 2 baseball team in the country. Okay. You have to understand that's very competitive.
Yeah.
I knew somebody that they were trying to recruit that I played with. So long story short, I walked on 150 people. It was me and some other guy that they were looking at. They wouldn't take me because I didn't have a high school record. And I said, I was the fastest guy here. I was one of the best throwing arms. And I had a bat that was hitting solid contact. I was like, what did I miss? And they're like, from a scouting perspective, you're perfect. They're like, you have everything we want, but they wouldn't. But that was validation for me though. I had a chance to play for the, there was a movie that came out that was called, what was it? Not Rookie of the Year, but anyhow, some guy comes out of nowhere and he ends up trying out the major league team did like a tryout, and he was actually a phenomenal player. No one ever heard of him, and he did amazing things in the major leagues. So they all did this. They started having like little tryouts. The Chicago Cubs had one, and what do you know that the person that I get paired with, because anytime you go to a tryout, they pair you with someone, and I get paired with a guy that they're actually scouting. Like it's their top person that they're looking into. And I'm beating him in everything that we did. And then I got I had an interview and all this stuff. And there was potentials that I could have went to, that they were going to come scout me further in games, but I had an injury that prevented me when they came, and they're like, sorry, and that was it. But for me, that was validation enough. That I went to Arizona State, one of the top schools, and came down to me and someone else. The freaking head coach asked me like a gazillion times where I'm from, who are you, why haven't I heard from you before? And then all of a sudden I had a chance to be scouted by actually major leagues scouting perspective. And they liked me so much, they wanted to continue forth. And for me, even though someone can say, well, you never played college ball though. Yeah, I never did play college ball. But you know what, though? I went beyond the college ball level. And then I played semi-pro for quite some time. And semi-pro is where you get, it's very competitive. It's almost like it's like 85 mile per hour pitching, 90 mile per hour. You get major leaguers or minor leaguers that come play in there. And it's very competitive, which is sometimes even more competitive than college sometimes. And so for me, that was validation, right? I had to go through that experience. That was a wake-up call. So that taught me from the outside, be like, you know what? No, this is what, no one's telling me that. This is what I'm going to do in my life.
Nice. That was like, that definitely require of courage. Yeah. Because without having the courage to do that, it would never, definitely doesn't happen. And it's a kind of like those moments that we call it as like revolutionary moment that it can turn a person's life around. So how do you, if you want to look at from the lens of the book that you have, the latest one, The Matrix, and so where do you put that in the Matrix? Like what the Matrix is, and what is it that you're saying? Like it holds back like 95% of the people's potential. So like, what is that?
Yeah, I mean the Matrix. The Matrix is. To keep it simple, it's just a human collective consciousness. And when I say that, that is the average of every human being's thought, emotions, and basically just the vibration of where they are. Okay. And when we average it out, becomes this middle ground, this medium of where everyone, for majority of the part, where they are. The Matrix, though, influences us in so many ways, because you have to understand that it is something that well, if you think about certain things in life, and we all have this, because there's the main matrix of the world, but then you can break this down into North America, you can break this down in South America, you get Africa, XYZ. Then you can break that down. There's sub matrices into like the United States, Malaysia, and so forth. Then there's the cities and the towns and so forth and all that. And you can get all the way down to the lowest level is you. And so there is layers that influence us. Like you have your family's matrices, right? There's some matrix, there's those influences on us and so much more. And so there's all this conditioning and influences and all these things that program us. Because if you think about it, when you come in as a child, you're pure. There's nothing, there's just pure essence of who you are. And you're imaginative and you just see the awe in the world and you're curious. But from 0 to 7, your brain is so impressionable that it absorbs everything like a sponge.
Yep.
And so, the way it absorbs things is by reactions and what we see in our world. It's not the words that are being told at all, because it's what we see as in a reaction or something, how someone responds to something or some type of thing that happens. Mm-hmm. And then as a kid, we absorb that, right? Because now if somebody say, well, if it's finances and you see your parents arguing about finances, you think, oh, finances aren't good, or whatever that may be, but you don't articulate that. It's just a feeling you get. Mm-hmm. And so then there's reconditioning of that, because then what's in the matrix, right? And then what's the world sharing? What's the world impressing? And what's the world kind of telling us? Because anything you see in the world really is where the vibration of the matrix is. You know, and it's a different way of looking at things. So like when we think of war, we think of this and disease and this. Well, if the matrix doesn't support life, then we're going to see we're going to see less life happening, right? And until the matrix vibrates above life, then all of a sudden we will see more focus on developing life, taking care of life. How do we culture the world? How we culture other human beings and animals and all these different stuff. And we're seeing a shift in that. And when I say different levels of supporting and non-supporting life, this work comes from Dr. David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force, one of my top 3 books. I love this book. And he talks a lot about this, how he, his conscious technology that he uses, which is not really technology, but when you think of technology, but it's a way to access and see where is I call it vibration. That's not his work on how he says it. He just calls it the consciousness level. Yeah. For me, I understand it as vibration, but it's one of those things of where are things at and understanding why we have those kind of those standpoints and so forth. So, for me, my family matrix was all about, we're not good enough. We have low self-worth. We're not, we have limited beliefs on money in many different ways. So that was a conditioning from many years of family generations, from coming from farmers and stuff like that, and all those kind of things, that was already being programmed and conditioned into me, which then, because when you have low self-worth, you don't look at yourself well, you look at for others' approval. Yep. And the approval of others are going to determine your value. Just like I did this in chiropractic when I started my own business. I didn't look at the value of who I was as a chiropractor and what I bring to the table. Instead, my value and how well I was doing as a chiropractor was determined by my financial success and the number of patients I had. And it took me 5 years to break that mold.
Wow. So what was the process look like? Like how do you help someone who is basically this is something that, of course, like it's a very common topic that many people struggle with it. I think like if you look at it from money perspective, even the job of like the most famous one was like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, which they talk about, like if you're coming from a poor family, at the end of the day, you can actually work your whole life, but still do nothing. You can achieve nothing. But if you're coming from the rich family, you can be stupid your whole life. But just because you have downloaded those unconscious lessons from the parents, from the way they make decisions, right? So you will be fine in the future. So that is something. So how do you help someone who is coming from that background? So money is one aspect of it. It could be like, different aspect. So could you like bring us through that process of like, how do you help someone to go through that?
Oh yeah, I love it. And the process is simple. It's not hard, because a lot of times your subconscious mind dictates 95% of your life. It's automatically running, always going, right? This is the tape. This is, and so a lot of times what we're taught is we got to go to the consciousness, right? Well, let's learn a new habit. Let's do this. We got to do that. And you got to stay focused. And I'm not saying those things don't work, but you're really going upstream to make a change. And it's so small. That's why so many people don't make true radical changes. Now, what I mean by radical change is a vibrational change of different vibe. So the way I take people through is it's an awareness process. It's not a cookie cutter system. It's very individual based, because what I've learned from like in chiropractic is when I do chiropractic work, it's individual care.
Yep.
Each human being is different than the other. And I can back it up with biochemistry and all this different stuff that proves that too. But the same thing is true for us. You and I, one thing we have in common is we're human beings. One thing that's vastly different between us is our upbringing, our values, what's important to us. And there's no two people in the entire world. Heck, there's no two souls, no two anything in the entire universe that are identical. This is the Pauli exclusion principle from quantum mechanics. So understanding that, knowing that, then it's like, okay, so what I take my clients through is I always tell them that you have to understand the feeling. Now, this feeling is something you have to feel with your body. It's using your body as a tool. We have disconnected ourselves from our body. And my journey is helping people to become aware of the feeling, because you have to understand, how is your subconscious mind programmed? Was it you verbally talking about it and programmed it? Or was it a feeling? Was it an emotion? It's an emotional reaction that programs it. And there's other things that can come from that, because some people I've interviewed people in the whole world of belief, and they'll be like, well, it's the belief happens when you're a kid and you want to make that change, and that's the end of it. And that becomes your truth. And I'm always like, that's true and not true. I'm like, there's another side to it.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, no, it's not. I'm like, well, hold on. I don't want to have an argument here, but I'm like, your brain, your ego, mind, have you ever created a belief system where something kept showing up and you're just like, let's say it was something you're not good at or something. You're like, man, I keep trying and it's just not great. Right. And then, like, for me, it was always art. I tried doing art. I tried to play certain instruments. I just can't get it down. So when I was a kid, I was like, I'm just not good at playing instruments. That's an acquired belief. I had to see a conditioning, a process. And then finally, after seeing it so many times, I said, maybe I don't believe that. I'm not, this is what it is. That's truth. But there's the other side where you believe instantly. So what I have them do is there's many ways, and I'll share this. This is the easiest way to become aware, because you have to become aware. You don't have to understand. You don't have to verbalize. We get too much into the intellect. If you want to change your subconscious mind quick, you cannot look here. You cannot talk. You can't get it. You can't be a mental thing. It has to be a feeling. And so what I do with my clients and what I help people with on this is, and this can be in anything, relationships, money, health, you name it. You can apply this. What is your biggest knee-jerk reaction to something? What triggers you? Because when you look at what, like, for example, when that coach, I've been saying this to this podcast, no one tells me what to do, right? No one tells me what to do. Well, why is that? That you can see there's a power behind that. I mean, I'm very more zen about it now, but it's one of those things. I look back at my life. I have a low self-worth. I've had my power taken away all the time as a kid. And so I have a low self-worth. No one's going to tell me what to do, but yet I seek people's approval. So when you tap into these feelings, you figure out what these triggers are. Then you just got to understand there's a feeling that happens. And it's an internal feeling. You will feel something, like before that reaction comes, you get a feeling. Or like if let's say you have low self-worth and you don't believe, you have limited beliefs on money. Well, when you lose money, or you thought you were going to get something, or let's say in business, something was going to happen and you were hoping this deal is going to come through and it falls through, right? What's that initial moment response? And it's the initial moment. That is a feeling you want to become aware of. Because once you become aware of the feeling, that opens up the door, because now you can start to change things. This is why I use reframing the mind. Because once we get to the belief and understanding what it was, then I just sit there and go, okay, this is, let's just say you believe you have low self-worth. And so then we'll take that and we'll say, all right, I teach my clients then how powerful they are, that they held this belief to be true. And we go through, like, look at it, because they'll start telling me, oh my God, because I'll ask, when did you choose this belief to serve you? Right? Because once you're aware now, you know the feeling. All you have to go is go back and remember when those feelings showed up, and you'll start to see it. You start to see it. And it's not, and it's sometimes it's quick, but sometimes it takes time, because your brain has a way of blocking things that are painful for you, so you don't experience it. And so what we're trying to do is just have you go backwards to see exactly when. And then all of a sudden I've seen this. I've done this so many times in my life. There's like a light bulb that all of a sudden hits and they go, oh my God, I remember the exact moment. I remember the exact time. I remember the exact thing that I said or what happened in front of me. It's always, most of the time, like I said, majority of the time, it's something that happens. And then you have a feeling off that. And that's what you absorb and condition. And so they'll be like, it was this is what happened. And I just remember this. I remember that feeling. Okay, great. So you chose it at this time. All right.
Okay, so
Look how long you.
let me just
Okay.
put down this one first. Yeah. So I think the way you're putting it is like quite similar to the way that when I wrote In Control, I also came from the same understanding. Like the core of the model, if you recall, is all about consciousness. When you become aware that there is a better life out there, there is a better work opportunity out there, there is a better Victor out there, there's a better Reza out there, that you need to be conscious about it, right? And unfortunately, most people, they don't even have that such an awareness, like, because you're just going through that rat race and keeping the light on kind of lifestyle, that you don't even realize it, that you can actually get better. So so you're saying that the first step is you're creating that awareness by asking them the question of like, okay, so then you decide, okay, which part of your life you want to improve. So whether it's about money, it's about relationship, and then you're asking the question of what triggers you, so what holds you back. Is that correct? Did I get that part correctly?
It's like a knee-jerk reaction. You have something happen and all of a sudden you just get the emotions that just come, like you just get flooded. Or sometimes it could be the opposite, where it shuts you down, right? And so you want to be very aware of that, because that is the clues of the things that are holding you back, or resistance, or it's the belief that's not allowing you to experience what it is you want. And that's why, like, for me, finances was one of the big ones. So anytime I had a loss or this didn't happen, it was just like things were just like, everything got real heavy.
And
so I just started.
What do you ask yourself, like, when it comes to your finances, like how do you get somebody else to ask you that questions, or you do it on your own?
For me, I've been doing this for so long now. What I normally do now that works phenomenal for me is I'm very intuitive now. So I've built up my intuition. Everyone's intuitive, but I built it up to a point where I'm so aware of when I know that feeling comes, I can actually get to it, feel it, and be like, oh yeah, here it is. But what I'll do is I do a lot of things of what I call recenter or reset. And it's more neurological stuff. So like I'll go into a meditation and reset. I'll do breath work, reset. So because what happens is I'm trying to, these are other tools, how we reinforce, because you can, even with clients who become aware of a belief, they get it, they got the feeling, then it's like, I have to support their nervous system and their neurocircuitry, because what happens is their brain is still conditioned and wired a certain way. And so what I say is, like, we have to, when you fire back old patterns, we have to do something to reset it. Just get it back to neutral.
This is something that it's been built like maybe decades ago. So it's kind of like a hardwired neural path already there. And then it's like the whole belief system has been there. Okay, so this is the first step, right? The awareness part. You find the trigger, you find the why, like, why do you feel that way? And then what would you do after that?
So then it becomes, the question is like, why, when they get to that point of like, and again, it doesn't, they just know the feeling, they know when it happened. Then it's like, okay, now, since we're aware, that's 50 to 90% of solving the problem. Now all we have to do is just reframe the story. We have to change it up. So then it becomes, that's what served you for all this time. Now you're looking for, you're not the same, you're not a 5-year-old, 4-year-old, 3-year-old, whatever anymore. And so now the point comes, what do you want to experience in your life? What belief, what code, I call them codes. What code or belief that you want to create that's going to serve you for who you want to become in the future? And so then they think about it. I said, don't just think about it. Like, again, it's a feeling. So you can, this is how I do things. My shaman will go, he'll say, no, you just got to feel and move forward. But I'm like, I'll write out what it is, and then I feel it. And I'll keep working on it until I get this like little kid excitement inside me. That's just that's how I feel it, right? Again, that's what works for me. That's my answer to know I'm in tune. And then I just go, beautiful, I have this, great. And then I say, this is your new belief system. Put it somewhere so you can see. You don't have to read it. Just have it in your awareness, because your brain picks up on it anyhow. And then we have to build a support system. And that's what I was just talking about earlier. How do we reset things? Because the longer the conditioning's been there, it's going to take a little longer to break out, and sometimes it could be, and I've had work with people that with the moment they got aware, they took action, and then all of a sudden their life just blew up. Right. And it does do that. I mean, it does happen that way, but some people, it takes a little longer. And so it varies on the individual, but then it just becomes, what is a support that we can create to, now we're working on neurology. And this is where my background in chiropractic comes in, because now I want to recondition the brain into this new way. And there's other things you can do too. I mean, I have a lot of background and stuff that I've learned. I just like learning. So that's something I just enjoy. But it's one of those things where like you can even do it with like something called emotional freedom technique, which is tapping on different acupressure points. And you can program that in by using verbalization, like affirmations and stuff like that. These are sometimes I don't use that as often. But for people who like it's taking a lot longer to see the shift, then I will, because they're resetting the nervous system and kind of reprogramming it to what this new experience is going to be. But it's getting back to that feeling. And then once my clients can know the feeling and what it comes up, and then they know the feeling of what their goal is, what the new version of what they want to be, then it's just knowing this feeling shows up, and then just get connected back to that feeling, whatever you have to do to get that feeling. See, it's not like a mental process of like cookie cutter. It's how do you, what for you as an individual, for Dr. Reza here, it's like you got that feeling that's low and you're used to this, but you know the feeling where you want to experience, then we just got to figure out what works for you to get you there. And then once you get there, that's it. Just keep doing that to keep you there. And then eventually the nervous system and everything, it takes about 90 days, usually 84 days if you want, from the research, to shift your neurology to that new experience and then start to evolve that into your life.
Okay, cool. So it means that if I want to summarize what you said, so the first step is start with the awareness, and then to understanding like, why do you have such feeling? And then you asking yourself, when did this happen? When do you start to have such a belief system or the feeling about it? And then after that, you are looking for ways to reset it for them, right? So which they need to come up with the decisions of like how they want to reset the whole thing. Because if they don't want to do it, obviously no conversion happen if the person, they themselves deeply, they don't want it, right? So that is something that they have to make that self decision. And then after that, the third step, you create that support system for them so that they can actually hold themselves accountable. So that is like kind of interesting. And you mentioned about 84 days, right? So that's kind of interesting. So the work that I have done is that so normally we always talk about like 10 weeks, which is like about 70 days. So you're saying like 84 to create a completely new neuro even related to that experience or that feelings and all those stuff, right? But I like the tapping thing. So that was kind of interesting as well, because it's quite interesting. It's like you think like doing certain like physical things will help. Like, so is it some form of like anchoring or something?
No, so emotional freedom technique is a technique that uses specific there's certain acupressure points.
Motion what?
Emotional freedom technique. That is the technique of what
technique. Okay.
And what that does is it uses different acupressure points that you tap for a certain amount of times, and you do in this sequence. And then what it will do is it's good for de-stressing. It's good for releasing anxiety. It calms the nervous system. But there are other aspects of it to where they've taken it to where you can actually say an affirmation and utilize the affirmation to program that into the nervous system. Because as you're calming, right, you're all of a sudden they teach it in certain ways. And this has been 15 years since I used to read the manual and had this down way better than what I'm saying now. I can actually even tell you all the points and what they mean and all that. But you can go ahead and it can help with those kind of shifts. You can go on YouTube and just do emotional freedom technique affirmation, and you'll see the whole process of how they do it. They have so many videos out there now, but it's really, really cool stuff. And I used to recommend it to patients from time to time who had like anxiety, or because chiropractic is really, really, I mean, it's all brain work. That's what we do. And we're helping reestablish the nervous system to get back into a balanced state and, or a more adaptive state. I shouldn't say balance, it's adaptive. But long story short, sometimes patients will have struggles with this, and 3-6 months into care, and I'm not seeing the results as well as I like. This is why I was so diverse in my work, because I needed that for myself. That's, it's always like the doctor becomes a doctor because sometimes, well, at least in the holistic world, because they wanted to help themselves in some way. And I love learning about health, not only for the sake of my patients, but also for myself, because I want to be the healthiest I possibly can, so I could be the best I can be until my time comes. Yeah. And so that's where this can come in, and it's a great tool. It's a good reset. I have a friend of mine who just got in on it, and he's like, I can't believe this stuff is magical. I'm like, remember I was telling you, like, he was a buddy of mine who I went to school with. I'm like, remember I was telling you like 14 years ago when we were in school, I was like, I gave you a manual on it that I had access to. And he was like, I just, he wasn't at the time for that. And now it's in his life, and he's like blown away what it's doing for him.
Yeah. So there's one thing that just now when you were explaining about this, the second part of it, that you want to reset it. So in my work, what are the things that I found that normally we use in the process of the coaching someone? So coaching is not about telling people what to do. It's all about asking great questions so that the person come to that realizations that I want to change or improve my life. So how normally we do it when it comes to the process of the resetting? I often try to look for some strength or something super significant that the person has done in their past. Like, for example, the person said, like, oh, you know what? I managed to basically like climb this mountain, or I managed to basically finish a marathon, or I managed to basically quit smoking. I lost like 20 kg. So we use that as an anchor to help you achieve your new goals. So we always believe that in coaching practice is that if you have managed to achieve one significant thing, just one significant things in your life, you can actually use that as an anchor to achieve anything else. Because like, I personally, I don't like it when people say, oh, look at me, I can do it. So you can do it too. You are like what you said, you are a different person. I'm a very different person. So the best way to do it is to anchor to something that they have done in the past. Use that as an anchor. If you can do that, you can actually do this. So it's just a matter of the discipline, right? So here's what I want to ask you. So how do you help someone to stay consistent? Because many of the people who are listening to the stories of like how people converting themselves, how they go through that process of the progress, conversion, the biggest problem is always consistency. Yeah, it means that they started well and say, okay, you know what, Victor, I promise you, I'm not gonna have that belief system. But then again, something happened in between, and then the person goes back to the same place, right? So how do you help in your practice? What did you find the best actionable things that somebody can do to hold themselves accountable?
Love this. Before I get into that, I just know that's why I like you so much, because exactly what you said about anchors and all that is exactly what I do. Because it's again a vibe and a feeling you're getting your people to get into, right? And what that vibe and feeling does is everything's energy in life, right? So if you can keep them in a high vibe,
yep,
it makes what they want to experience a lot easier.
Yep.
And so I love that. I just wanted to mention that. So yeah, you know what it is people are, I call this, I write this in my book. I wrote this in the book called The Decoding the Matrix, where I talked about something called the honeymoon stage. And I talk about this in a relationship standpoint, right?
Sorry,
we've all been there, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Right. You get that new date, you're dating somebody and you're just like goo-eyed and there could be nothing wrong with them. They're absolutely amazing, right? Until that first argument happens. And then all of a sudden you feel like the thunderstorm just came out of nowhere.
This relationship is going to end today.
Yeah, right. You get that like, what the heck? So why does that happen? In my research, studying psychology and talking with experts in this field, and one of the things I learned is that, your old conditioning is coming back. You can fake something for a little bit, but your old conditioning is going to come back on how you see things. Well, in coaching, it's the same thing. I talk about this in coaching all the time. I'm like, well, I'll tell it to my clients. When you start coaching with me, the first 2 months, 3 months, you're going to be loving it. Your energy is going to be high. You're going to be listening to everything I tell you to do.
Yeah.
But in about 2 to 3 months, you're not going to be following up. You're most of the time not going to be doing the things I'm recommending you to do. And you're going to just go into what you think is important. Why does that happen? Because they never made a real change. And so how do we, make those shifts to get them to a certain point? For me, I don't like it. Sometimes as much as I like to get like frustrated, because I'm like, come on, I want to see you. Like, I'm all about seeing Mike, and I know you are too. It's like getting your clients to get those results. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
And it's not even about taking those results and saying, look what they did with me with coaching. I can give 2 craps about that. My marketing team's like, please give me that information. But for me, I'm like, I don't even care. I just want to see the results change. That's what I care about.
That's the biggest satisfaction. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. And so, but what I'll do sometimes is, you can do the friendly nudge and you can do the accountability thing, which I do a ton of. But what I've learned that has helped me and what's helped worked is I just become a friendly reminder when something comes up. Let me take a step back. We only make time for what we value. Right. So if we're not doing the things that matter most to what we want to create, the real truth is you just don't value then what that dream life is. You don't value that. And then sometimes that's a self-sabotage. Now we're going to go back into beliefs, because a lot of my coaching too is like, I'm looking for patterns that show up. This is why if anyone ever works with me, it's like a 6-month minimum, because I'm not going to figure out the patterns in 3 months. I may have a gist of what they look like. I mean, I'll see enough information, but like in 6 months, I'll have things mapped out, figured out. And, we'll start working on what is the most, thing that they're like, oh, I really want to get to this level. Okay, here's the things that I see that are holding you back. Let's start there. But it's getting to, understanding, again, coming back to why, coming back to what's important, that they did, that what really means to them. And then the key is just, again, I know this sounds like a broken record, but it's getting them aware to see that. To understand that what the actions and what they're doing and what they're not allowing to do, what is the repercussions of that 3-6 months down the road or a year down the road of what they're wanting to achieve. And then I'll tell them, if you don't do this work, you remember we talked about this, you don't value it then. And they'll just look at me like, I value it. Of course I do it. And I'm like, listen, I'm not saying you don't value it, but you have to understand, we always spend money on anything only that we value. And we only spend time for things that we value. And so then this is where I try to create a wake-up call to get them to be aware of that. And then once they start to see this, then all of a sudden it gets a little better and a little better. And they start to understand that, getting back to, it's not about just the doing, because we do too much already. You can go read a new book, go listen to the self-help, personal development, entrepreneur, business coach, and whatever. They're going to tell you all about doing most of the time. We don't need to do. We need to be. And this is where I'm talking about, is getting back to that beingness of why is this important to you, or why is this there? What does this really mean to you? And then what I'm trying to do is get them back into that, because what happens is in life is you have a part of your brain, which is, I think they call it the default brain. I call it the default brain. But what that is like when you want to make a change, but then after a certain period of time, when stress comes and situations come, you're always going to go back to that old default brain. It's your old ways of responding and how you see things. Yeah. TD Jakes talks about this a lot, where he says, like, you got to change, you got to start with a new mind. And he's like, you can have if you have your old mind and you buy a new car, you're going to have the same old experience. You may not see that in the beginning, but it will happen down the road. But you have to shift the mind first and see things from a different lens, a different perspective. And in my experience of what has helped massively is once we do that, then I don't have to be on them so much. They just do, because they're getting excited. They're starting to feel, the more they get into this, all of a sudden they're like, wow, I'm starting to notice this. Usually they need to see things externally to get excited, which I wish they would see it internally first, but it's a work in progress.
Yes, I completely agree with you, because the examples that you gave, the honeymoon stage things, I never used that term that you use, but we have like similar practice that I also use, that I use it basically even on myself too. Sometimes you just need to understand, like, why did you fall in love with that person? Like, why? So it's really a hard work, right? It's like, especially when it comes to the relationship and or any other goals, it really doesn't matter. It's a hard work. You have to do the work. Things doesn't happen by a magical formula, or tell me a shortcuts, and that shortcuts, you just do this and then life would be perfect. And that's exactly what we explain in Control Life too, because it is a progressive journey. It's a hard work. It's something that you got to do the work and put a lot of effort into it. Yeah. If you don't want to do it, it just simply doesn't happen. So, and I love it the way that you put it also just now. So you mentioned that you connected back to their values, that they do. Do you really want this? If you don't want it, I can't help you. It's something that you need to make a decision to do it. And if you don't value it, well, you know what? Good luck. So there is nothing. My job as a coach is just to hold you accountable, to remind you, why did you fall in love with that person? Why did you fall in love with this project? Why did you want to basically to lose 20 kg? So it's kind of like reminding them about, like, why they made this decision in the first place. Is that correct? Something like that, right?
Yeah, because it's a lot of the whys, and a lot of my work is on vision. So it's always going back, as you're saying whys, I'll use that, but then I'll be like, remember, what's your vision? What is your vision that you wanted to create for yourself? What's the main vision of your life? What's the main vision in your relationships, your mind, your health, all these things that we work on? Sure. And it's like, how important is that to you then? Or is it even important? Because now this is where, because like I said, I've learned over time with myself, working with other clients and so forth, is there comes a point where it's like when people say they want something, and this is all about, I share this in Decoding the Matrix. When we say we want something, majority of the time, it's not what we want. Yeah. And again, you got to think again, when you're going to the matrix, the influences of life, things that we've been told. I went through this for the first 5-6 years of my career, where I was told I studied the best chiropractors that totally existed. I wanted to learn from them. I wanted to be successful. I had a drive because I knew what I grew up with. I knew what my experiences were, and I saw what I didn't want. So I was like, I'm going to study and learn everything I can about how to be a successful chiropractor. So then what happened? I was programmed. Why was I programmed? Because I'm listening to all the leaders who are mostly the ones that are controlling what growth is and what should be. And then you're just listening. You're like, well, they live a very successful life. Look at them. They're very well to do. They got nice clothes, nice car, nice house, all these things. And they look happy. So I want that. So what do I have to do? So I studied all that. 5-6 years in, I hit the peak of my financial success, which was absolutely amazing from a financial standpoint.
Good for you.
But when I looked at my life, I was unfulfilled. My relationship wasn't at that level. My health wasn't at that level. My mindset wasn't at that level, but I had what was considered successful.
Just one pillar was working.
Yeah, one pillar was dominating. Now, my health has always been pretty good, but it wasn't great. My relationship it wasn't like we had relationship issues. Well, we had some, but in the beginning, but it was one of those things like I want to have like a partner. I want someone who's like, I had to relook at everything. And then I was like, man, I was brainwashed. I didn't know that. I was like, holy cow, I was conditioned. Dang it. Even me who understood these things. And I had to go against the grain, right? Just like everything else, just like when the coach told me this, just like many other things. And I was like, no, I'm not going to be told this is how it is. I'm going to create it my way. Sure. And I did. And I've done something now to where in my office, I was working 14 and a half hours a week. I had one of the largest pediatric offices in Illinois, which when you hear 14 and a half hours a week being in the office, and if you talk to anybody in pediatrics and chiropractic or family wellness, that doesn't happen. You need to see more because families, you got to serve them at the times they need. And I was just like, listen, this is what I want for my life. If someone's going to come to me, they can make it work with their schedule. If it isn't, then it's just not going to. I know what I want, and I know what I want to do in my practice. And I want it to be at that level because I have other things I want to do, like writing a book and starting a podcast, starting to do coaching. And that's where my coaching career started to begin, because once I went from 28 hours to 18 hours, then I was able to coach. And then I was like, how can I get this less? So I started practicing the law of least effort to create that. And I got it down to 14 and a half. But I may have forgot the question. I apologize.
No. It's pretty good because you have touched on a number of things that, you touch on, like creating that work-life harmony. And, when just now you were saying, like, you yourself as someone who is teaching other people how to do it, and then you go through that trap. So that is exactly the question of like, who motivate the motivator himself, I think the way that I usually, because I get that question a lot too. A lot of people ask like, so are you telling that your life is like perfect? You are in control. I'm saying like, nope, it doesn't happen. But so the question back to me is that, so how do you fix yourself? So one, of course, we also have our own coaches, mentors, and all those stuff, right? But my answer to that is always like, you got to know what's your driver. So once you have your own driver, so that driver will work as a compass to help you navigate back. So for me, for example, my compass is, if anybody asks like, what's my driver, is my two sons, So whenever I know I am out of tune, the moment I go back to them, they help me like, in a way that they bring that inner contentment for me and make me so feel good. It gives me that motivation and drive to go and fix it back, because I know how to fix it back. It's just a matter of like, sometimes being a human being, right? Sometimes it's like doctors, they can't fix themselves. They go and they go through that reflections, meet other doctors and so on, right? But they know, they are aware, like what you said. I love the way you put it. It's like, but I know I have this problem. Some people, they just don't know they have that problem. So
yeah, no, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, yeah, because you have to have that awareness, because then you can start to now create solutions.
Beautiful.
Right? You can start to take things in the actions when you do that.
Yeah, yeah. So I just want to ask you like one last question to this topic before we wrap up the session, is that what do you found the best accountability system? Like how these people hold themselves accountable?
So I do something where every quarter I have something mapped out. I do something called the 5 M's of life.
5M.
I call it the 5 M's because my last name is Manzo. Just want to make it cool. Because I have a
5M now.
So because when people coach with me, I have a 12-week course that's built in with it, and it's called the Manzo Mindset Method. So it's just the way how I look at things, right, and how I just have a system in place. And then it's basically the foundation to the communication of what we'll be talking about, how they help. So when they need something, they can go back there and look at it. It's more like a resource. But the 5 M's is very simple. So there's 5 elements I have my clients all work on. They have to create visions on this too. But then, because you got to think, we go long-term first. And then what we're trying to do is how can we create small little things now to achieve that long-term thing of what we want.
Okay,
so the first is main.
Yeah.
So the 5 M's is going to be your mindset. Okay. The second is marriage, but it's not like just if you're not, some people are like, well, what if I'm not married? The term marriage just means relationships. So it's any relationship in your life. The third is going to be movement. So that's your physical body, your physical health. The fourth is going to be your mission. This is usually your whys, your purpose. Why do you do what you do? It's your businesses. It's the things that feeds your soul. Okay. So this doesn't have to be just a business, but it's things that feed your soul and how you're going to keep feeding that and growing that, right? Because this is where now you don't need motivation. You got your own inspiration, because motivation is doing something you don't want to do. Inspiration, you're inspired within, it's in spirit. You don't need that. And then the fifth one is money. Money is going to be your actually financial wealth, but it also could be your business wealth. It could be your career. But those are the 5 things. And what I take them through is every 90 days, they have to map out what are the things that they want to achieve in those 90 days. But I have it in a system, and I have it in a way where they declare what it is. And then I review it, because a lot of times people put a lot of stuff that's not specific. It doesn't have a lot of clarity. And I'm always like, remember, goals, you got to have them SMART, which is, I'm going to miss one of them. It's specific, measurable, attainable, relatable, and time. I think that's what it is.
Time-based. Yeah.
Time-based. Right. And so I'm like, and so we work on that. And then I ask, why is that important to you?
Beautiful.
What is that going to give you? What is that going to, do that? Then I have another section that says, what are the things you're going to do to make this successful? Because just like soil, you have to have really good soil when you plant a seed. If you don't, it doesn't thrive. Nice. And then we get into beliefs. I want them to be aware of their beliefs. Why won't this happen? Right? Why won't, and some people are like, well, because, life may get in the way. And I'm like, nope, that's not life getting in the way. We got to go deeper. What is that? What's the purpose of that? Beautiful. And I work through them on this. And then I give them their what's possible in 12 months. What is something that you can see that's crazy out there, but you can kind of see it as being possible? And so every quarter we go through that. And every month I have processes to where I have like, hey, what's your check-in? And the check-in is, you got a thumbs up on what you're doing, or you have a thumbs down? Do we have to course correct? Did you change it up a little bit? Like for me, this quarter, I was going to be working out 6 days a week. Well, I just decided last week to change that. It's a little too taxing on my body for my health. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to 4 days a week, and I'm going to change my workout a little more intense. And so it's called a course correct. It doesn't have to always be, you're moving forward towards your goal, your vision, no matter what. Sometimes we course correct because it's just life may come up. We talked a lot about this when you're on my podcast about harmony, right? This is the harmony side of things. It's not trying to balance everything out. It's just like sometimes you may have to focus a little more here or over here, but you're trying to keep everything moving forward all the time towards that vision.
Yeah.
And so that's how I do accountability. Yeah. And that's how I do accountability in my practice, in my business with my clients, because then I have it written out. I do videos for them on it. Or sometimes we'll go on a call and talk about it, just depending on, certain things. And then we get clarity because again, like a lot of times, like just like when you ask somebody, what do you want? They're not usually telling you what they really want. It's the same thing when they map out their goals. There's just so much confusion, and there's so much, not being so precise. And I know this. When I say this, like sometimes my clients will be like, well, I want to see yours. And I share mine with my clients. I have no problem doing that. But I always tell them, I had a coach for 5 years who did something very similar to this. And I just took it and made it my own. And I was like, and he always had to go through, and had to make sure I had to redo them to make them more specific. So I've had a lot of training and a lot of mistakes to learn how to get this to be precise to the T now. And so I'm like, I had to go through it. And sometimes I catch myself. I'll put a go thumb there and I go, that's not clear enough. Or that doesn't have the clarity of what it needs. I need to go a little deeper in that. Let me see how I can get this to be more attainable and be able to track it and so forth.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think what I love about you and your work also is like quite similar to my thought process. I think so to get our audience, like summarize what's happened just now. So it was like mindset, marriage, movement, mission, and money, which is quite similar to actually like, you know, the work that I also do. So mindset to me is more of like your character and also like, you know, being conscious in that process. Marriage, of course, we talk about it in the book about your companion and the collaboration that you're doing. So it's not necessarily needs to be your wife. It could be like your partner, your colleagues, your friends, family members, and so on. And then you said, well, movement. So movement, the way I got it was more of like, you know, making that progress. So it's a conversion, and also it touches on contentment, on condition, which is your physical movements and so on. And mission, of course, is your why, which is your compass, and money, of course, is it's the cash part of the things as well. And I love the way you put it as well. I think I also do the same practice, SMART, which is pretty good. And I love the questions that you ask as well, meaning that you ask the person like, why is this goal so important to you? And then how you can get these things done. And at the end of the day, you ask them the question of like, so who you should become in order to achieve that. And that's the most important part. So that's why we always tell people the goal by itself is not important, but who you should become in order to achieve that goal, that is very important. That's beautiful. So one last question. Tell us something about you that not many people knows.
Oh, this question, when it comes up, I never know what to say. You know, it's like one of these things where it's like, how far down do I go here? Or what do I do here? And then what people don't know about me, man, I have to think about this one.
Something you never spoke in any other podcast. If you ever spoke, I will call you back later.
Man, I got to really think of it. You got me. I just never, you know, something I don't talk
any
about.
Any interest, any hidden talent, something that people don't know you have it.
A hidden talent. Okay, well, I don't think I talk much about this. Like I talk about cooking as being like an art of mine, but no, I don't want to go down that route because I love cooking. I've been cooking since I was 6 years old. Maybe I never talked about this on the podcast actually. Not even on my own. I've never talked about this. I've been cooking since I was 6 years old. My mother is an amazing, I come from a beautiful family of Italian chefs, and my grandmother was an amazing cook. My great grandmother was an amazing cook. My mom was phenomenal. And I made my first gravy. We call it gravy or tomato sauce.
Yeah.
When I was 8 years old.
Wow.
And, but get this though. My best friend, who was my neighbor across the street, he's Mexican. His family's from Mexico and everything. And I was very into their culture. So like, I have like, if when I speak Spanish, I don't speak a lot of good Spanish. I'm very broken, but I have a very good accent with it. And I know I grew up with authentic Mexican food by going by his house and eating all the time. So long story short, my mom stole my recipe because I made my first gravy at 8 years old, which I was very proud of. I saw my mom doing it so many times. But what I did is I put jalapenos in it. Because I was like, oh, I love the spiciness. We were making our own salsas. We're eating it. And I was just so amazed how spicy it was. So I made it. My mom was like, oh, great. You know, this and that. Here's the kicker, though. Next Sunday, she's making gravy, spicy gravy. And everyone's like, oh, my God, this is so great. It has a little kick to it. I never thought it. She goes, yeah, I just whipped it up. It was a great idea. And I go, you son of a gun. So anyway, long story short, it's got to be about me. I love to cook. It's something I'm passionate about, something I enjoy to do. Yep. But I'm a novice at it, but it's something that is freeing to me. And I just love to, it's my art. It's my way of just like, my mom does this. She goes in the kitchen. I think this is, you know, you have chefs who are very mentally and they're intuitive and they can, you know, they think of something and they put all these things to make sure it meshes. My mom has the gift where she can walk into a kitchen and whatever you have, she can make something amazing.
So your mom's side is like Italian.
Both sides are. Yeah, I'm 100% Italian. So, and wow, I didn't get to know my grandparents on my dad's side because one passed before I was born, one passed just shy of a year after. But I grew up very close to my mom's side of the family. And like I said, amazing, 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 amazing cooks in the family. I mean, you know, and my mom has this gift where it's she can walk into any kitchen, see what she has, and she'll be like, I don't even know how to do this and this and that. Here's the funny thing about me. I do, like, I made lasagna for friends like 4 or 5 years ago. I'm going to a house and we asked what they want. I said, I'll make lasagna. So I made the lasagna, but my wife knew I never made lasagna before. Never have. But
So
I've seen it.
Talent already.
I've just seen it made so many times that I was like, I'm just going to put it together. I know how to put it together. So I did. We cooked it there. Everyone, the whole thing got demolished. Everybody was eating it. That some people came up and said, this is like the best lasagna I ever had. And I looked at them. I said, listen, thank you for that. That is so kind. But I don't even know if I can reproduce this because I'm like, I've never done this before. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, it's my first lasagna. They're like, what? And my wife will say that. She's like, he goes in, he cooks, and all of a sudden he'll make something and it's good. Like, I've never had anything that good from you. And I'm like, I can't take credit for that. I wish I could. So I guess there's a few things in there I'm layering for you guys.
Yes, and next time, make sure you patent whatever you do very well. All right, great. So Victor, where are people can find you?
Yeah, you can catch me on my website, empoweryourreality.com. I have my book on there. I have my podcast resources, blog, bunch of good stuff on there. If you want to catch me on the socials, you go down to the bottom left corner of the website. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn is where I'm usually at. Get connected. If you have questions about anything I talked about, you can always DM me. I do look at my DMs. I do message. I love hearing from people. But yeah, that's the best way to get a hold of me.
Sure, we will put all the links down below as well. So guys, we hope this conversation has inspired you to know and learn more with us. A reminder to everyone to live an in control life is the life where you love what you do, you love who you do it with, you love who you do it for, and you love how you do it. So please tune in our next episode. As always, we love to have you around. Thank you for listening. Victor, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for being with us.
Brother, thank you so much. It was my honor.
Most welcome. Thank you.